Hello, everybody. This is Teen Title Talk with Erin
and Courtney.
This is the podcast
where two librarians discuss two YA books every 2 weeks.
Today, we'll be talking about the books Rebelwing by Andrea Tang
and The God Game by Danny Toby.
But first, into the Jar of Teen Angst.
Woo.
So our first question is, did you ever engage in any activism?
No.
This one's so easy.
It was so easy. I was in the science club, which was really the recycling club, but it started
I remember
out,
because you had a crush on the teacher.
Yeah. Okay, in my defense, everybody had a crush on the teacher, but yeah, what other?
You're saying motives. But the motives were not activist related.
It's fine. But that kind of got started as like this sort of like people wanting to like be more environmentally aware and do more like environmental activism stuff, and then it just turned into us emptying out the recycling bins every week.
Right. Which is good. That is still good.
So it's doing some kind of service, but I wouldn't say it's activism. I was no Greta.
Me neither. There was a walkout at one point that I was definitely going to do.
Whoa, about what?
I don't remember, and I don't think it was like, there was no I remember. They were going to switch our team. They were changing the team model. And at that point, I was on Team Phoenix. Amazing. It's where the cool kids were. Teen Discovery, that was the smart kids.
Wow.
Explorer, they were kind of the misfits.
Okay.
So we were anti-changing the...
Because you liked your people.
Right. And so we were going to walk out, and I remember Miss Ormsby supporting us. And then I think they changed it to... I don't know. I don't remember. It was probably fine. But then they changed it to like, we had to go to the auditorium and have a meeting instead. So we did that. It was not a big thing. It wasn't a big activism thing. Not like the environmental club, which is great. But it was a thing that I remember. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk out. It was in the 8th grade.
Oh, wow. No, I did never walk out of school.
But some teens that I know today are so incredibly involved. And I know there were teens that were incredibly involved. It just wasn't me.
Right.
Like my friend Kim would have done something activist related for
Maybe
sure.
she did.
Sure.
Yeah,
Probably.
I don't think any of my friends did. We were all kind of just like going with the flow.
Yeah. And want to shake things up
to survive.
All right. This next one is a library life question. This is related to found items. Do you ever find interesting notes, etc., in books or at the library? What's one of the cool, note or not, what is one of the coolest things you have found? And I'm going to add if you can't think of something cool, anything. Like something disgusting.
Something I've found in a library book. I don't know. I mean, like, there's always some, like, old little bookmarks. Sometimes you'll find. One thing I like to do is look in the library I work at now, we still have a lot of books that are kind of older.
Yes.
And so we're in a constant contest to see who can find the oldest book on the shelf.
Oh.
Yeah. So one that we found in the children's room it's like first edition of the Mountain in Maine one there.
Okay.
Born on a Mountain in Maine, is that what it's called?
Maybe.
I don't know. It's like a survival-y type
cool.
book, but from like the early 60s.
But not like My Side of the Mountain. That's like
No. Okay. And it still has all the like little stamps.
I love those.
Dates.
I mean, you can see when it was last checked out without even having to go into the computer.
It's true. So some of those are fun to look at, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's like a weird thing that I found inside, I don't know, like grocer lists and stuff, but that's not exciting.
Okay. I did find a thing just recently because I was asked to go look for Alan Shepard's yearbook. And so I was looking for it. And I have brought, because what I did was I grabbed it. It was this little commencement booklet. So it wasn't exactly a yearbook like they do the Pinkerton Critic now.
Right.
It was the Pinkerton commencement book. And it had everything you'd have in a yearbook except like more. But smaller because it was a much smaller class, 1940. So it had like their pictures and their quotes, and then it would have, commencement information. And on his page, like I flipped open right to his page because there was something in it. And the thing in it was the class song of 1940. And it's written by hand.
Oh my god!
They must have sang it. And Virginia Atkins.
I wonder if those were students or if those are.
I'd have to look,
teachers.
But it's like very obviously loyal to Pinkerton. I'm not going to sing it because my voice is so bad. But
my voice, I'm sure it's great. I don't know like music well enough to be able to read what it would sound like.
The second line is like, we won't forget the joys that we shared, the friends we have in our class. We know friends like these are rare and will forever stand by her, uphold her name, fling out her banner, and broadcast her fame.
Wow.
Of Pinkerton. Now, I also found Alan Shepard in there. If anybody's listening and they don't know, Alan Shepard was the first, he's an American astronaut who was from Derry, and he was the first to fly in space. And then he did go to the moon, but not the first man on the moon.
Aside from the potato, it's really Derry's claim to fame.
Right, that's true. Spacetown, USA. It was known for a short time as Spacetown, USA. But his, they have little quotes. And his favorite expression was, I didn't do it. So obviously he was a mischief maker.
Wow.
His hobby was skiing. He was also he was class football, class volleyball, one-act play, auto club, junior play, senior play, tennis, choir, 4, class baseball, and
Alan Shepard, he did it all.
I know. Well, that's how he became so successful, maybe. I don't know.
Some people are driven.
In this one, though, his ambition is the Navy. So what changed? Water to the skies?
No, but didn't he go to the Navy?
Oh, did he go to the Navy? He probably started in the Navy.
I think usually people who were astronauts started out as like military type.
Yeah, but I thought I would have pictured like Air Force, but I guess they can fly in the Navy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense then. Maybe he went straight to the Navy.
Huge boat.
I'm sure he did. If that was his senior year, he was probably headed to the Navy. Yeah. Right? I would imagine.
If that's what he wanted to do. We don't know enough about Alan Shepard.
We got to get out there and read his biography. We have it right there. So that's good. All right, let's talk about books. Tell me about The God Game by Danny Toby.
All right. So this game is this game. It's a book about I would say augmented reality and these 4 friends who are kind of misfits, and they wind up in this little club that they make together where they meet in the AV room, tech room kind of thing. And they like to pull pranks on people. So usually it's pretty low stakes pranks, but then there's this one prank that is a little bit too far, like a little bit mean, but it's just making copies of someone's picture and posting it around school.
Gotcha.
But it's not nice. And it's about Tim, the most he's the football player, popular jerk guy. And so anyway, so that's kind of running in the background. And then one of the members of the group ends up getting this strange invitation to the God Game.
And just mysteriously gets the invitation.
Yes. And then they all get invitations.
Okay, gotcha.
And then so they're all playing this game where they wear augmented reality glasses. And so they're seeing real life, but with this other layer on top.
Cool.
And it's dangerous, and the game controls everything.
But they can step out of it at any time. It's not like a situation where they're stuck in a game. Oh.
Yes and no.
She's moving her head back and forth.
Yes and no. There are times when they absolutely need to disconnect, but it's extremely difficult because the game has control of every electronic device. So not only your phone, but also your computer, the Wi-Fi at your school, the Wi-Fi at any restaurant you're in, the Bluetooth in your car, so it's all this network of interconnected cameras and
creepy,
all kinds of stuff. And so it's even if you want to escape,
you can't.
It won't really let you.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds high stakes and interesting.
Very.
So Rebelwing by Andrea Tang is a book that takes place in the future version of the U.S., where part of the states have access to information and the other half doesn't. Our hero, Prudence Wu, can be found going over the border to smuggle books to the less fortunate. when I say access to information, I mean like basic media in general. Like theirs is very controlled, whereas where Prudence lives, they can view any media they want. She goes over to bring some contraband.
Ooh.
And then is kind of...
what's she bringing, like DVDs?
I think like book or DVD.
Okay.
And she's kind of just sold out by one of her regulars. So all of a sudden a chase ensues. She's being chased down by the government and she thinks the game is up, except for what appears before her, a giant metal dragon that saves her from this situation. Basically what happens is at that moment, this dragon, which is called a mech, imprints on her and chooses her as her pilot. And so then she has to try to train. She's like, and very soon after that, she's goes to like what they call just a government internship where she trains with this dragon. And then war arrives and she must use her dragon. So a lot going on.
That's a lot.
But it's interesting.
Okay. That's cool.
So let's talk about
the
God Game
so
first.
Different.
I know. But they're both, we went sci-fi this time and they definitely both hit that mark. So if I've got this right, kids use virtual reality. I thought virtual, but you're saying augmented. So that's a little different.
Ooh, I don't really, honestly, I truly don't know the difference. Like, I think virtual reality is like you put on like a helmet and you can't see anything else. It's a totally new world.
Augmented, there's
augmented is there's real life and then there's like this, like Pokemon Go.
Right.
Like there's a little Pokemon on your desk. He's not really there, but he's there.
Right. Got it. So they use augmented reality to step into a game run by real life hackers. When they win in the game, they get a reward in real life. Sounds like? Okay. This reward could be benign or malicious, say in terms of, like you said, revenge on a bully. And then there's this element of the AI god. So it feels fun. It feels like way over the top.
Yes.
Is that it was?
It's totally over the top.
Okay.
It's in a good like way? Intense. It's so intense.
Okay. But in a good way or a bad way? Because you know how it can be over the top and you're like, no, this isn't that. And then like it's so far reaching that.
No, honestly, I felt like
buy it in any way, shape, or form.
It's very like Black Mirror or like Twilight Zone-ish, where like it feels, it's just not real enough where you're like, oh, that couldn't happen. But then it's just real enough to be like, unless it could. And then it's very unsettling.
Okay, gotcha.
And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on your definitions of good and bad, but essentially it's an exploration of morality and like crowdsourced morality.
Right.
And so it's not just like these hackers that are running the game, but it's also like everyone who's playing the game. So they're not the only people playing it. And so it's like the age-old question of like who is watching The Watchmen? And so like, are you are the players controlling the game AI or is the game controlling them?
I feel like the game is controlling
It's very hard to know, actually.
Okay, really? Interesting. All right. So as I was reading reviews, some people seem to think that this book has all the elements they love, plenty of time with character and relationships and action too, while others felt like it's not moving quickly enough and has too many secondary elements. What was your general impression? Did you feel like it struck a good balance between action and character development?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was really good balance. I was very happy with the character development because
I feel like I need some.
You absolutely need some. And in this story particularly, it was really important because so much of what happens to them, like why it feels like God is really watching them is because whatever this AI is doing, it is sort of filtering through all of their email, social media profiles, text messages. Like it knows everything about them.
Okay.
Including their deepest, darkest fears, desires.
This is like a big, like so this is this, do you think, sorry, finish your thought first.
So we have to know the character in order to feel like we understand, like, why would your best friend lie to you about applying for Harvard? Like, who cares?
Right.
But it's important because of these reasons that you get based on the character development that you receive. So
got it.
I'm very happy that the author decided to like dive into each one of their like home lives and personalities. And it's all so different. And everyone has like a different reason essentially they're all lying and keeping secrets, but they have to keep themselves safe or keep other people safe. But then it's wild.
Well, so because it's like there's some like flags going off in my mind. I guess. Is it commentary on tech in our lives or not? Like because some things you're saying is like this kind of feels like commentary.
I think
or it's a nod to it, or
I think it has. I think it is. I mean, I think this story, if there were elements of it that felt very fresh and very new, but the story of like being afraid of a video game taking over your life is not a new one, right? Like it's been done so many times. And so I think it's tapping into this fear that we have of artificial intelligence and also sort of
tech taking over our lives.
Well, right, like being replaced or something, or like real life being replaced by this like virtual life. Like much like in the Matrix, where like, are you living? Is this real? Or are you alive somewhere in a pod and like your brain juice is just being used for something, you know?
Exactly. Interesting.
And so for whatever reason, this is a very human fear of science.
Interesting.
And so I think it's definitely tapping into that fear and kind of, it remains to be seen whether it's for good or for bad. I mean, people die, people get hurt, but also like people are about to do really bad things and then are pulled back from doing those really bad things. And so it's this like weird cosmic justice scale where you're like, okay, in the small scheme, this seems obviously very bad. But in the large scheme, you know, on a worldwide scale, you're like, maybe it's like the trolley problem, you know, like, do you kill 5 people to save one or whatever?
Yes.
Right. So it's very like philosophical also, which is kind of fun.
Gotcha. How about characters? Who did you like? And were there any you wanted to just see die right away?
Oh, yeah. I hated Peter right away.
Okay. Who was Peter? What was his deal?
I don't know. He's one of those...
I don't even know.
I could tell he was bad news, but like I couldn't put my finger on why. I get worried when characters, like when they feel like they have nothing to lose. And Peter has nothing to lose. He barely has a family. He's essentially wearing a mask. So like he started out at some other school in some other state. He's got this secret that he tells people that his mother is dead, but she's not dead. She ran away from them. Oh. And then he and his dad like moved, and his dad basically shamed him into like losing weight and changing what he looks like and how he acts and whatever. So like he's been totally brainwashed or like abused, and now he's just this like freaky kind of blank slate where like you kind of feel like he has no soul, or maybe not that he has no soul, but he's just like this.
Whatever. He's been beaten down so much that he's like apathetic.
He's almost like an element of chaos.
Oh. Is he very cavalier because of his?
Yes.
Okay, I see.
So like his dad's like never there. He does whatever the hell he wants. He pisses off who he wants. He like deals drugs to people, but like he doesn't do the drugs because he like, you know, he's in it for himself. But it's a survival thing for him. But he also derives joy from manipulating other people.
That's not cool. Is he one of the hackers?
He's one of the friends.
Oh.
Because he's like one of this group because he's kind of a shapeshifter.
Interesting.
And so he can be like what people need him to be.
Interesting.
And so I didn't trust him right away.
And did that play out?
It proved to be true. But I didn't realize the extent of how wacko it would become. Until like the last 3 pages.
What?
Yeah. I had to finish that sucker.
All right. So anyone that you really loved? Nah.
I don't know.
It's an ensemble cast.
I really like Kenny.
Okay.
Kenny his parents are super religious, and he is kind of balking against that.
Okay.
But he respects the fact that they have something that brings order to their world, but he just can't believe it. And so he's like caught in this struggle where like he doesn't think that his parents are like dumb or anything. He just like wishes he could believe, but he can't.
Right.
And he's super smart. He's got all this like, he reads philosophy for fun. He knows he's read he's read the whole Bible. He's read the Quran. Like he's extremely well read because he's interested in world religions. And that's really great for this game. Although he ends up being kind of a bad player.
Oh, bummer.
But it's good because you get from him all these like different angles. And he's like just a sweet kid who's trying not to be bad. And he ends up having to do something bad.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I'm like, it kills him that he does this bad thing. But it's like, if you don't do this bad thing, I'll kill all your friends. Like that kind of thing.
Sure.
So it's like, I got to do the bad thing.
Is this the beginning of, is this a series or just this is a one-off? We're done.
I don't know. I actually don't know. I think it might be just a one-off.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Last question. I have a book list at the library called I'd Rather Be Gaming, and this is definitely going on that list. What other books do you think might go along with it, or just one even? What other book do you think would go along with it?
I think an older one that would be good for middle graders, so like something that skews a little younger, is Heir Apparent by Vivian van de Velde.
Love that name.
Which is like about a girl who enters like virtual reality world, and she can't get out until she beats the game. But Ready Player One is probably a good read alike, or at least go on the same list.
Oh yeah.
Old stuff by like Philip K. Dick might interest people who are interested in this.
Okay. Cory Doctorow, probably.
Yeah. It's interesting because as I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is like that episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Where a virus takes over this like virtual reality world, and then they end up trapped in it, and they don't know whether they're in virtual reality or in real life.
That's cool.
And that was from 1994.
Right.
And it reminds me of the episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where Picard is trying to argue for Data's sentience, because they're like, we're going to destroy this android because he has no spirit or soul or whatever. He's just a machine. And Captain Picard's like, no, he's a person, even though he's an android.
Right.
And so we've been having these discussions for as long as there's been this idea.
For sure.
And so, I don't know.
It adds to it, though. It's fun.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about you, Rebelwing. All right. So I think you keep reading books that are parts of series.
True.
This is a part one. So I'm curious if there's something that draws you to series specifically, or it's just been luck of the draw. And like, do you think you would finish this series?
It's totally luck of the draw. And also I'm my own obliviousness, because I don't usually even look. Like I'll note if it's book 3 or whatever. But basically I'm a very free reader. And when I pick up part of a series, I am not committing to the whole series. I'm basically willing to read it and see if I like it. If I love it, sure, I might pick up the next book, but I don't have any dedication to series, really, in any way.
Okay, I pretty much avoid them.
Some people are series readers.
Yes, they love them.
And I'm like, no, like I might read that one, and if I love it, I'll read the next one. But if I don't, I'm not going to be like, oh, I wasted my time. Because it comes to an end. It's a certain end at the end of the story, but it's just not. I don't know. So yeah, no, it is a first one. With this one, it was good, but also a stretch for me. So will I dive into the second one? I don't know. Probably not.
Okay, well, that's fair, though.
But it wasn't saying it's bad. It's just, for me,
Every reader has their own. So, with sci-fi, because the cover of it and everything, it doesn't, I mean,
the big metal dragon.
So, it's sci-fi, but I feel like there's always this, like, push and pull between what feels like plausible prediction and what feels like science fantasy.
Sure.
So, so for me, like sometimes like steampunkish things seem almost like science fantasy.
Okay.
But like I feel like the one I just read is like science fiction because I feel like it could happen.
Right.
Where does yours fall?
It's weird because there's dragon, right? So basically it's strictly science. There are no fantasy dragons. However, it also pushes scientific experimentation. experimentation beyond what feels predictable. So you know how like science, like you were saying, like you could feel like it could happen. I don't know if I could feel that like government would create dragons for combat and war. Sure, a robot. Dragons feels like a stretch to me.
Okay.
But there's always that one cavalier random scientist who might do it.
It's true, like, oh, Bob making his dragons back here again.
I just don't see it happening on a mass scale or anything like that. So, you know, I could be wrong. So I think it's like high sci-fi.
Okay.
It's not sci-fi fantasy. There's no magical element mixed with the science, really. So, yeah. It's just like sci-fi, but brought to that like robot suit extreme where you're going to get into a suit and do combat or fly or whatever.
That's cool. And it's not
and
space,
communicate
right?
With
it's like
not
on
in
Earth.
Space, on Earth, yes.
Gotcha.
In fact, I think you're going there.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So it's my understanding this takes place like in the future USA, and it feels kind of grim.
Right.
So like what is at stake here? Does it feel urgent? How's the pacing?
Okay. So we're in the future US and it's split into the two groups where...
Is it kind of like North and South?
Kind of. Because where Prue is, she has free access to information and media, but outside the walls, it's called the United Continental Confederacy.
Oh, okay.
And
that's why I thought that.
do not have free access to media, ideas, or information. So, I mean, at its core, it's about intellectual freedom. Soon, war arrives and Prue is unwillingly thrust into it. I'd say as far as is it urgent, intellectual freedom always feels urgent to me. So in that way, it felt urgent. Absolutely. Like this is something to protect. But the actual feeling of urgency wasn't there for me necessarily. Like I wish Prue had more invested at a personal level. Sure, she's moving contraband, but I'm not feeling that core passion and why she's doing it for a long time in the book. Like if she had cared deeply about it, I would also have cared more about it in the situation. But she's just constantly being thrown into this situation and that situation. So there's urgency because that's the theme. But it didn't necessarily feel super urgent until like war arrives, which is halfway through. The pacing, I think the pacing would work for some readers. There was so much dialogue and a lot of it was about the political situation. And for me, it felt sluggish because I'm like, okay, we're protecting intellectual freedom. Go. Like, I don't need to constantly be hearing about these different little facets and organizations and people.
Right. Do you feel like she's building it for the...
Yes. Yeah. And you have to do the world building. I wanted more flight and more fun with the dragon, like right away.
Yeah.
But instead, Prue kind of struggles through a couple training sessions and then war arrives and it's hard for me to articulate. It was moving fast, but also wasn't fast enough. It was kind of like that conversation we had last time about like the mystery versus the puzzle.
Yes.
Like the murdery part. Yeah. That's like, exciting and scary.
Yes.
And versus the puzzle, which is kind of thoughtful.
Right.
And this one is very brainy with the political stuff. And then a little slower with the action suspense part. And so, again, for some readers, that is a slam dunk. For me, I wanted a little more action suspense. So dragon flights right off the bat. Little less. I got the political stuff like bump. Maybe. Boom. Well, yeah, because like halfway through, you're moving quickly, but it's getting there, and it's a little dense getting there.
Yeah. So, okay, can you read a little bit for us? Like maybe a part that feels cool and sciencey?
Yes.
Okay.
So whenever she was with the dragon, I was like so excited because I'm like, this is really cool. She has some struggle with the training sessions, but there's
they're bonded somehow?
Kind of, yeah, but it still felt like not exactly bonded really from the start because she's learning how to use a machine. So she's getting through this combat training session, and this is where we are. As one, Prue and the dragon dove. Part of her mind was screaming along with her vocal cords. The other part of her mind, the one that coasted on air currents with metal wings and saw the world through high-definition reptilian eyes, made calculations, like she was working through a problem set on an exam with a ticking time limit. She'd need to swoop beneath Quixote, who's the mech she's fighting, to catch the other mech in time before Quixote and Alex both went splat. Prue squinted through the dragon's eye lenses, hard enough to pinch her temples, trying to figure out the right angle. Hey now, she murmured at the mech thrumming around her. I know we haven't gotten on so well these past few days, but how fast can we just fall? In answer, Rebelwing dropped. Later, Prue wouldn't be sure how to describe what happened in that moment. Just that she'd been utterly, eerily certain of herself and the span of their body, the joint capacity of girl and dragon to catch the ridiculous boy windmilling toward gravity's deadly embrace. The world had sped and blurred around her. Color and light exploded on her field of vision through the eye lenses, the world screaming past the screen too fast for her brain to process. And somehow, at the end of it all, she'd wound up perched on the far edge of the coalition government's training field, Quixote dangling around Rebelwing's neck. So it's great writing and this great flight scene as she's like catching.
Yes, that's
Alexandra.
exciting.
Yeah. And you can really see it through the dragon's eyes, which I think are cool.
Now I want it to just be about the dragon.
I know. It definitely goes there. It's just like I want it to be like everything.
Yeah, because now I like have so many questions about this dragon. Like, okay, it's a robot dragon, but it also has some kind of knowledge, feeling. It's sentient, it says.
Right.
So, like, how does that work? Who made these dragons? Like, why did...
Well, Cat made the dragon. Yeah. Do you want
why
me to...
made the dragon?
Yeah, so the... Why did they make the dragons? Cat made the dragon, and it was basically in response to the wyverns of the Jellicoe's army. He had the wyverns, and the wyverns had done horrible atrocities, and they were not sentient. And so this was like,
so that means someone was in charge of them then.
Right. And so this response was like, okay, we're going to make them sentient. And then who comes to do battling against them? Like the wyverns have made this reappearance. And so, yeah, that's where we are.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's interesting, but at the same time, like the sentient part, I didn't feel right away as like you would with a mythical dragon where you can see its free will and its animal aspect. It was more not right away. First she sees it and then she's in it. And different times she's seeing it or she's in it. But she doesn't have that like connection that you'd have to an animal right away. It's more like she is connected and she has to figure out how to work this machine, but through her mind and talking to it and working with it. So there is a part of it having its own free will, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like an animal.
Well, that's
it feels
good,
like a machine.
Because it's supposed to be.
I think it works. But again, like bottom line, this, I think, would be a slam dunk for sci-fi lovers. Fantasy lovers might be have a harder time getting a foothold on this. Also, anybody who loves like political intrigue and sci-fi, that's going to be like the perfect mix.
Yeah, I felt like, the third installment of the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I felt like it was very political.
Yeah.
And some people like it a lot and some people are just like, meh.
Right. I mean, and maybe it's because like politics is all around us and like so you can get really exhausted from that too, right? So it's certainly maybe also when you come to the book.
It's true.
So yeah. What's up next?
What is up next?
That's a good question. So
It's a great question. I was like searching and searching. Every time I was searching for
a dystopian,
it was like
a third in a series. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. There's so many like end of series that I never started. Okay. So, I don't have one picked yet.
We're going to find one.
Do you have one off the top of your head?
No, that's a good question, but I'll look. I'm going to read We Unleash the Merciless Storm by Taylor K. Meggie, which
is the second book.
Yeah, I know. And we set the dark on fire.
Yeah, which you love.
I did love it. But I'm going to look today for a newer dystopian. Just one in the first.
I was searching and searching.
I know. I should have thought of that. Sorry.
Because a lot of them are crossover.
That's true, too.
Could also be sci-fi or
which
could
is fine.
Also be whatever.
I mean, this is, she's not technically in a dystopian right there, but they could devolve into it. All right. Well, we'll figure it out and we'll let you know. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to answer our questions from the Jar of Teen Angst. We just had one today. As a teen, do you engage in activism? Or if you are older listener, did you engage in teen activism? What was it like? And how about found items? What have you found lately that's interesting? Send us those stories and more at teentitletalk@gmail.com. And we'll read a few of our listener responses next time.
Yes, great.
We would love it.
Will we have some?
I don't know.
I hope we do. Thanks for joining us for Teen Title Talk. This podcast is brought to you by the Derry Public Library and Derry-CAM, Derry Community Access Media, empowering independent voices. Listeners, your support means a lot to us. So rate, review, leave us your thoughts. Our theme was created and performed by Banded Starling. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.